What is going on, everybody? I am live on YouTube, listening in with a headset to try to get everything going a little bit better for myself. Got my streaming mic going, so hopefully everybody can hear me out there. Want to go ahead and say that this is a Rob Answers episode. Going to go ahead and answer your questions. Um, I asked the question on Facebook yesterday of what kind of questions would you like me to answer. So I am going to go ahead and jump into those. But I do want to go ahead and start by basically saying that I recently just received a notification on my television that said that GameFly was going to be ending its streaming service as of August 31st. So to basically discuss this real quick, I didn't even know that they offered a streaming service for games, and it turns out that uh, based on an article that I am reading here from Fortune magazine, it basically says that GameFly's streaming service allowed customers to rent games through smartphones and media streaming devices. Electronic Arts took over GameFly's cloud streaming technology and personnel earlier this year, according to Variety. EA also announced its own all-inclusive streaming subscription package called Origin Access Premier at E3 in June. And then the only quote that I get from this article is, "We acquired the team in Israel and the technology they've developed. We did not acquire the GameFly streaming service. We have not been involved in any decisions around the service." An EA spokesperson told Variety, which also reported that GameFly chose to end its streaming service prior to the sale to EA. So GameFly actually got bought by EA, and as such, now with EA already announcing their own streaming service coming up, uh, GameFly will be ending theirs because it was not part of the deal to get the library and everything that EA acquired. So my opinion of that is, once again, I actually did not know that GameFly was owned by EA at this point, and also did not know that they actually had a streaming service for games. And the pictures that I actually saw when looking up GameFly's streaming service showed things like original Xbox games like Halo 2. So, all that said and done, let's go ahead and just leave it as one more service like Movie Pass suddenly not running nearly as well as it has in the past, and as such, not going to be sticking around too much longer. Very unfortunate for anybody who actually utilizes something like GameFly's streaming service, but once again, EA will actually be launching their own service in the future, which may highly affect the way that physical games are actually purchased. I will leave that opinion and that statement there, based on companies I may things considered there. We're going to go ahead and leave that alone. Want to go ahead and jump into some other stuff that I said I was going to discuss on this episode. Apologize for not being out here last night. I tried to upload an episode while I was driving home from work, and there was pretty much no video involved with it, and I didn't want to give you a video podcast without video. So I'm here now and going through and giving you guys what I got tonight. So, want to talk about the Jeff Skinner trade in the NHL. And a lot of people are talking about how it was great for Buffalo, not so great for the Carolina Hurricanes, and it's tough to talk about. It can be looked at as a fire sale for the Carolina Hurricanes. Obviously, Don Waddell, the general manager and president of hockey operations for the Carolina Hurricanes, stated that the move was made because we want to win. The move was made even though Jeff had given us everything he had and a 30-goal scorer. When you actually look at how he played where he played, where he was on the lineup. He typically was on the third line, sometimes on the second line. Never really made it to top line minutes, and the reason why was because he was a one-way player, only one to play offense. So, all things considered, getting Cliff Poo from Buffalo, as well as 3 draft picks, could very well end up being a steal for the Carolina Hurricanes. Could also be very, very bad for the Carolina Hurricanes. It's one of those decisions and one of those trades that you really don't know until you start seeing what actually comes of it. Cliff Poo was a third-round draft pick, but everything's showing that he is developing into a solid player. This will be his first year actually in professional hockey. He was still in juniors before this, but he was the second best player in the league that he was in. And when he went to the World Juniors, was a highly sought after prospect, highly looked at, and definitely high performing. In fact, one of his line mates for his team ended up is also a Carolina Hurricane prospect, so he's already got history working with him. So all things considered, we could actually see this being a huge positive move, and it looks like he's got all the talent in the world to actually be a 20 to 25 goal scorer. Obviously, he's 19 or 20 years old at this point, so it's going to be a little bit before he actually makes his way up to the NHL ranks. But all things considered, there, with Svechnikov coming in, Teuvo Teravainen and Sebastian Aho being such a young core of offensive players for the Carolina Hurricanes, this could be a resurgence. I was actually joking with my brother-in-law who I would consider an amateur expert on the Carolina Hurricanes. He was basically saying that Don Waddell said that, it's been a long time since the Carolina Hurricanes actually won and got to the playoffs. And if you look back, that drought started the year that we actually drafted Jeff Skinner. So a lot of doubt can be placed on his leadership and ability to help the team get to the next level. But the joke was made that this was a fire sale. We're looking to just get rid of all the talent, everything on the team, and it reminds me of the movie Major League. Let's go ahead and get the worst of the worst and see what we can do with it. And I basically just said, can we get size, like 6'5", 205, and speed? Can we get all that? Because if we just push everybody around like the old NES version of ice hockey with the fat guys, you're going to score goals at some point. So that's pretty much my feelings on it. I don't think that Jeff Skinner was necessarily a cancer on the team. I don't think that he was really hurting. A 30 goal scorer is a guy that's gonna draw approval from a lot of people. He's going to look flashy. He's going to look solid. He's going to look like an all-star, and the guy was an all-star in 2011. But when all things are said and done, W's are what make the playoffs, and he was giving first line goal numbers on third line minutes and third line play. So what does that really make him? Does that make him a consistent all-star when he goes to Buffalo? Does that make him a huge plus to the team for them? Or does it mean that he never lived up to his potential in Carolina, even though he was a 30-goal scorer on the third line? Remains to be seen. Once again, the articles I've basically read on it are saying that there's a good possibility that Jeff Skinner, this trade could make or break Don Waddell's time as general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes. And the joke's been made that he never wanted the job in the first place, but somebody had to do it, so might as well be the president of hockey operations, right? All right, so that answers that question that I said I was going to talk a little bit about. Now I want to go ahead and discuss the Rob Answers side of the questions that I poised out there on Facebook. The first question that I received was, if you could go to any WWE pay-per-view, past or present or in the future, which would it be? And this question was from our good friend Michael Turner. And Michael, I can tell you, I've been to quite a few WWE pay-per-views. I've been to Over the Limit in 2015, 2012. You know what, it was probably 2012 at this point. Wow. It was the one where it was CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan for the World Heavyweight Championship, but that was not the main event. The main event of that one was uh, Big Johnny versus John Cena in probably the worst WWE pay-per-view main event of the last 25 years. Absolutely horrible main event match. Totally shouldn't have even taken place. And everybody that went to that pay-per-view uh, totally said that match should have went on first, or that match should have never happened. And lucky for us in Raleigh, North Carolina, shout out to Mick Foley there with the cheap pop. Thankfully for us there in Raleigh, North Carolina, I got to see the worst pay-per-view main event pretty much ever, at least for WWE. If we went back and looked at the WCW pay-per-views, there's probably a good possibility that we had much, much worse. And you know, our history in North Carolina of bad pay-per-view main events, you know, we used to get some really good main events. I went to the very first pay-per-view after Stone Cold Steve Austin won the World Championship in or right after WrestleMania 14 against Shawn Michaels, and he went up against Corporate Mankind, or Dude Love. It was actually Dude Love, Mick Foley. So the first time I ever saw Mick Foley in the ring, I was a huge Stone Cold Steve Austin fan, and I didn't really know what we were getting from Mick Foley at the time. I was wondering what this was all about. And it's interesting because watching those pay-per-views way back in the day, I didn't realize that we were seeing a renaissance of pro wrestling in the WWE, because I grew up on guys like Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, and the like in WWF. And when they all left and went to WCW, one night when I was like, I don't know, 13, 14 years old, I just happened to turn the TV on to TNT, and there they all were, and I was like, what is going on here? Hulk Hogan, bad guy? What's up with this? So that was pretty interesting. But to answer your question, Michael, if I had the possibility to go to any WWE past, present, or future pay-per-view, obviously I've never been to WrestleMania. I want to go to WrestleMania. So if it was a future pay-per-view, I would love to go to a WrestleMania pay-per-view. I know quite a few people that have done it. They say it's quite an experience. So that is definitely on my bucket list of things I need to do. So I tend to think that is a pay-per-view I'd want to go to. But if I looked at the past and said I wanted to go to one that's already happened, it would probably be WrestleMania 25, which was Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker in their first match. It was also, if I remember correctly, the first real WWE pay-per-view that took place in like a football stadium. And as such, like, just the atmosphere of that event was just, you know, striking, and definitely caught me off guard with that. I tend to believe that when you look at that massive size of that pay-per-view, and then you look at what those two guys did, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, they put drama into it. They put story. They put a drive between two professionals who may have been just after their prime at that point, but still able to give 5-star matches. And they basically said to the guys in the back, try to top this. And they absolutely, to this day, I still go back and I watch that match multiple times a year, just to see what they were able to do. And, you know, I'm not a pro wrestler. I talk about pro wrestling on my podcast every week or every 2 weeks with Tino. And I can absolutely say beyond a shadow of a doubt that anybody who wants to get into pro wrestling, when you want to learn about what they call salesmanship, you know, in pro wrestling, that's taking a move and actually making it look like it did the damage that it's supposed to do. It's not just getting up and wave it, shaking it off. It's nothing like that. It's making sure that you are actually telling the story of how this move has actually done damage to you and what's going to happen from there. And I absolutely love when people tell me something like wrestling's fake. And you know it, it's kind of like team ice skating. There's a performance that needs to be done. It's two people in the ring or four people in the ring actually delivering that performance, and afterwards the grade that's given to them is based on the crowd reaction. So that's probably the easiest way to look at it. It is a performance between two, four, or more individuals, and how they actually deliver that. On top of that, you have the commentary team that has to really deliver. And in a match like Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, you absolutely got that. The only other pay-per-view, Michael, that in the past I would have absolutely wanted to be there for would have been Hell in a Cell 1998. I'm sorry. Yeah, the King of the Ring that had the Hell in a Cell Undertaker and Mankind match. Because I mentioned earlier, I never knew what we were actually getting with Mick Foley. But I've now read all of his books, but his Have a Nice Day, the Tale of Blood and Sweat Socks. I've read that book multiple times because he kept a real, like it's almost like he kept a journal based on his travels and his time getting to the WWE. And that match, if you weren't a fan of his before that, you weren't supposed to be. He was the bad guy going into that match, and yet somehow by the end of it, people are holding up signs that say Foley is God. And of course, Mick being a guy who totally doesn't believe that, because he believes in a higher power, sits there and says they forgot an O and it's Foley is good, and that's all he ever wanted to be was Foley is good. And his record against the Undertaker is actually pretty darn good as well. So hopefully that answers your question, Michael. Shannon like to ask the question of my favorite childhood movie. I could tell you my favorite movies now. It's pretty simple. I've liked The Treasure of Sierra Madre since my friend John actually had me watch it for the very first time. And that was about 20 years ago, so I would consider myself a kid back then. But probably, I don't know, probably Transformers the movie when I was a kid. Totally loved that film. Was totally shocked by the fact that all the characters that I tried to collect as toys growing up and watched through the seasons of the cartoon Generation One, as they all died in like the first 10 minutes, and it was like, what the hell's going on? Like how is this movie ever going to happen with no Optimus Prime, no Ironhide, no Starscream, no Megatron? Like how was, and they were able to pull it off, and it was obviously the last so thank you, Jason. Yes, Transformers the movie, I absolutely love it. But it's funny because I am such a movie buff that it's crazy at how many movies I've seen and how many movies I've probably seen like when I was a kid. Probably didn't see nearly as many back then. Uh, my dad used to always have us watch like old Disney films, which was great. I love Disney films. But yeah, Transformers the movie is probably my favorite childhood movie. Then after that, my high school years, my favorite movie then, don't know why, but it was probably Chasing Amy. Could be because it was very comic book related. Could be because it had, Kevin Smith's brand of humor. Could have been because for some reason I really, really loved Joey Lauren Adams growing up. Still do, by the way. Could be any of those reasons. I don't know. You pick one. But like it's funny because I don't think we've seen that level of Jason Lee as we saw, maybe not for that whole movie, but the first half of it, like he was just spot on. He was great in Mallrats. He was also great in Dogma. If you haven't watched the deleted scenes in Dogma, you need to because he does this like 5 minute speech as the devil in that movie that really shows like his ability to deliver, and yet with shows like My Name is Earl, never got to do that. Um, when he was in Alvin and the Chipmunks, never got to do that. That was like Dennis Leary all of a sudden being in a Disney film. Anyways, uh, so yes, so absolutely, I would say probably Transformers the movie now at this point in my life. Trying to think back and think what movies I liked. I liked so much before that. Now, like right now, my favorite movie, simply put, is Tombstone. It is the manliest movie ever made. Dana Delaney is absolutely gorgeous and just stunning to look at in that film. But the amount of testosterone in that film, just I have to watch it 3 or 4 times a year. It just blows me away every time I see it. Um, and I learned something new. Like I have watched the behind the scenes stuff on that multiple times. A lot of people don't know that Wyatt Earp III was actually a stagehand on that movie, so he was able to sit there and let people know like things about his grandfather that at the same time that movie came out, Wyatt Earp came out with Dennis Quaid, and it just wasn't the same. It wasn't Kurt Russell. It wasn't Sam Elliott. It wasn't Bill Paxton. It wasn't Powers Booth and Michael Biehn and Val Kilmer. I mean, just think of all the names. That movie, like nowadays you have movies where all of a sudden it's like, wow, look at this star-studded cast in Ocean's 11. But back then you didn't really have that, and yet this movie had Stephen Lang playing Ike Clanton. Like like he was the guy that was like, law don't work around here, law dog. Like that's what you got Stephen Lang doing. The the guy that was the bad guy in Avatar. It's mind-boggling. And by the way, like it's a shame that Val Kilmer didn't win an Oscar for his role as Doc Holliday, but it's even more of a shame, if you ask me, that Michael Biehn did not win an Oscar for his being Johnny Ringo. Like those two guys, it's like anytime you're opposite of Jack Nicholson in a film, you have someone to play off of that is going to give a star-studded performance, and you're just going to be blown away by it. So when you have Michael Biehn at like here, and Val Kilmer like here, playing off of each other, two method actors that become their character the way that those two do, there is nothing like it. And that's why, like, I have to watch that movie, like I said, like 4 or 5 times a year at this point. All right, I said I was going to do it. Morgan Charles had a question, and it was one I've been seeing on the internet quite a bit recently, and I decided I'm going to answer it. And that question is, would I rather fight 100 duck-sized horses, or would I rather fight one horse-sized duck? Let's debate both sides of this. If I were to fight one horse-sized duck, that's a big-ass duck. That is probably an 800-pound duck, and it can fly. That's kind of scary. However, if I were to fight 100 duck-sized horses, I got a trick there. Horses that are only like this big, maybe this big. Jason says that he would destroy the horse-sized duck. How would you destroy the horse-sized duck? You going to use wrestling moves on him, Jason? You going to use some dance moves? Is that what's going to happen there? I actually think that it'd be much easier to take on 100 duck-sized horses, and the reason why I say that is because I can go out and buy like 2 bags of baby carrots, and I can feed the ducks, or the duck-sized horses. I can feed those horses little baby carrots. And then they'd probably just start getting in line, and I'd probably be able to prance them around. And instead of fighting them at all, I'd probably actually have like a parade of tiny horses, and that would be awesome. I could hear it now. Elton John would actually sing a song like about tiny horses instead of tiny dancers. I don't know. Maybe Elton John wouldn't talk about stuff like that. But I think, Morgan, to answer your question, I would rather face 100 duck-sized horses, because literally one bag of baby carrots that's about this big would be able to turn them against, instead of being against me, it would allow me to turn them against whatever else I wanted to turn them against. And I'd actually make them my army of little baby horses. Uh, so Jason's saying he would distract it, get on its back, sleeper hold, out cold, and then instant dinner. So what part of the duck is the best part of the duck, Jason? I tend to think that, you know, it's like greasier chicken. So um, I think that that'd be great. I think that everybody out there that thinks about this question, the duck breast is probably the best actual part of the meat. And because it is greasier than chicken, the white meat, when you cook it, even if you cook it a little bit long, is still going to be a little more moist than the the breast of a chicken. So um hopefully people, when they actually watch this, agree with me on the duck-sized horses. I do still think that, you know, it's going to be easier to take on 100 little horses that are about this big, because if I gave them all one baby carrot, they would probably not fight me at all. They probably just want to probably just want another baby carrot, you know. But then I think if I were to actually run around with baby carrots, they would probably prance around and follow me, and I'd have like my own little mini equestrian. I'd have my own little setup where, you know, maybe like Lincoln logs set up or something, and the horses would just be jumping over the Lincoln logs, and I wouldn't have to fight them. I could probably make quite a bit of money by actually taking my mini horse show on the road with me as well. And I, you know, I'm all about pimping it out and trying to make as much money off it as I can. So so hopefully that answers all of the questions this week. I do want to go ahead and give a shout out to my friends at Ultimate Comics. They did not ask for it. They did not pay me for this, but they are doing midnight launches this week for the launch of Fantastic Four #1. Want to also give shout outs to my friends out at Arkham Comics, who probably are going to be running a pretty awesome event themselves, just making sure that they've got the copies of Fantastic Four #1 available. Looks like Marvel's going all in now that they've got this Fox deal starting to pay off and pan out for them. So we will finally get to see what's going on with the Fantastic Four as a full family group, rather than just as two of those guys, and what's been going on with them. So other than that, this week Madden comes out. So all you video gamers out there, my favorite Madden commercial is still the Madden holiday commercial, where everybody started saying that it's like its own holiday and people need to take off from work for it. I do not recommend taking off work for Madden, and want to go ahead and talk about the old elbow today. As you can see, it's pretty bruised up. Yeah, so today I tried to go into the back room at my job, and out of nowhere, a giant metal pole that we use to prevent people from breaking into the store flew at me, just randomly flew at me, and attacked my arm, and literally hit my elbow so hard that I couldn't move my hand. And it was quite shocking, caught me off guard. Had a low emotional intelligence moment, started yelling and screaming in the back. At the same time, I did not use any foul language. I was pretty proud of myself because there were guests in the building. But had to go sit down for a couple minutes. Didn't have any ice, but I was able to go into the store refrigerator and find myself a Red Bull Cola. They're not very tasty, by the way. So I finally found a use for it, using it as an ice pack, and was able to keep my arm in a decent position until I gained feeling back in it, and now it looks like I'm doing all right. So yeah, so Jason, once again, throwing out some dates for us. Raleigh SuperCon 2019 has already been announced. It's going to be July 25th through 28th of next year. So pretty much same weekend it was this year. So you know, this year's was a huge success. It looked like very busy on Saturday. Enjoyed my time out there. Wasn't able to stay all day or anything like that, but definitely had a fun time. Got to see Billy and Rob from Junior High Horrors. Got to take some pictures of some of the celebrities. And yes, Jason, I will definitely see you for Shenmue 1 and 2. But yeah, we'll probably have to see each other before that. Have to catch up on some of the pro wrestling stuff and go from there. So all right, folks, I've taken up half an hour of your time. Hopefully, you felt that my answers once again were of, I don't even know. Hopefully, you thought they were well thought out, well defined, and gave you a solution. And that's what I'm here for. So if you want, go ahead and like my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Rob Pochak. My Instagram, also instagram.com/Rob Pochak. Or, of course, here you can subscribe and like, share, and even comment on what you got to hear from me today. So hopefully you felt that everything was fine. Working on the ums. I realized that when I don't have a co-host working with me, I definitely a little bit more often because I'm trying to stay on topic. So working on that. Also say the word "so" all the time. So that is that is the word that I like to use as my transition word. So you'll hear me say "so," like I just did twice in that sentence. So you'll hear me say "so." With that, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up, and hopefully you guys like it. You guys give me some thumbs ups, and like I said, subscribe, like the page, and let me know what you want. What we. Sorry, I'm live, so I can't edit that out. But hopefully, you go ahead and you ask some questions, and we'll you like some questions or ask some questions, and I will answer them on the next round. Take care, everybody.